On July 1944, an unusual event unfolded near Cherbourg, France. Dr. Schwester, clad in a loose white medical coat, emerged from the dark depths of an underground cave hospital, her hands raised in surrender. The bright daylight, which she hadn't seen in days, made her squint. Just hours earlier, within the confines of the cave hospital, carved deep beneath Cherbourg's fortifications, she had asserted to her fellow nurses, "The Americans don't have the medical resources they claim. It's just propaganda designed to undermine our morale." This assertion, however, was soon to become the first of many of her shattered perceptions. Following her, 8 more German army nurses appeared, becoming some of the first German medical personnel captured by American forces during the invasion of France. In the final days of the siege, they had worked tirelessly, tending to wounded Wehrmacht soldiers by the flickering light of candles, conserving every ampoule of morphine and re-sterilizing bandages repeatedly. None of them suspected that within a few hours they would witness a medical might that would completely overturn all their previous notions of American weakness and German superiority. In an environment more befitting a medieval operating room than a modern clinic, the 9 nurses, captured after treating the wounded, prepared to confront an advanced medical system. This system was so well equipped that it would not only challenge their professional knowledge, but also undermine their ideological convictions. Colonel Richard P. Johnson, head of the 45th Evacuation Hospital in Lambes, observed them with interest rather than hostility, seeing them as enemy medical personnel, yet still fellow healers. In accordance with the Geneva Convention, these nurses were slated to be returned to German lines within days. A total of 16 German nurses were exchanged on July 2nd and 9, but first they were to witness the achievements of American medicine in 1944. They encountered drugs they had only heard of and surgical methods that surpassed their skills. The psychological impact of this experience proved far more lasting than their brief captivity. This introduction to a new reality had begun over a year earlier, on May 13, 1943, in the sultry heat of Tunisia. The surrender of General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim brought with it not only combatants, but also an impressive number of medical personnel, including doctors, medics, and German Red Cross nurses, who for 2 years had assisted Rommel's Afrika Korps troops in the harsh desert conditions. Among those captured was DRK nurse Ilse Schulz, awarded the Iron Cross Second Class in April 1943, making her one of the few women to receive this honor during the war. Her colleague, Dr. Greta Volk, also awarded the Iron Cross in April 1943, kept meticulous records, later discovered in German war archives. The Americans spend more medicine in a day than we receive in a month. They have drugs we had only heard of. The scale of the capitulation was astonishing, between 250,000 and 275,000 Axis servicemen, including medical personnel from elite units such as the 21st Panzer, 15th Panzer, and 90th Light Divisions, were captured. While most captured medics were male doctors and orderlies, the nurses experienced a particularly strong shock related to ideological differences. The Americans strictly adhered to Geneva Convention protocols with astonishing efficiency. At assembly points in Tunisia, American military doctors sorted captured medical personnel within hours. Those needed to treat wounded Germans were kept on site. The rest were prepared for evacuation. Each captured nurse underwent a medical examination using equipment that had long been scarce in the Afrika Korps. By the summer of 1943, the first groups of captured German medics began to be transported to the United States on Liberty transport ships. These vessels, mass-produced by American industry, served as a vivid refutation of Nazi propaganda about the weakness of the American economy. The medical equipment on board these ships astonished the German nurses with its advanced level. Operating rooms with bright electric lighting, modern X-ray machines, and refrigerated units for storing medicines were commonplace. Particularly impressive were the blood plasma supplies, properly classified and reliably preserved components, ready for safe transfusions, in stark contrast to the risky direct transfusions German medics attempted in the field. The 2-week voyage became a daily demonstration of American medical abundance. Sulfanilamide powder, issued to German soldiers under strict rationing, was here used without restriction. Bandages were discarded after a single use. German medical personnel, accustomed to meager rations, watched in amazement as American medics discarded uneaten food, a wastefulness utterly unthinkable in the German army. The arrival of German medics in American ports, stretching from Norfolk to New York, was a true revelation for them. Their first encounter with American soil refuted years of Nazi propaganda about a country supposedly suffering from economic decline. At the naval base in Norfolk, captured Germans were provided with comprehensive medical care, including thorough examinations. Dentists provided necessary care, infectious diseases were treated, and those needing vision correction received glasses. This level of care significantly exceeded what was available to ordinary German citizens. The further journey by rail into American territory continued to surprise the Germans. City after city displayed modern hospitals with sparkling lights. In Richmond, the impressive complex of the Medical College of Virginia was visible from the train windows. In Philadelphia, the majestic buildings of the Pennsylvania hospitals came into view. In every major city, the medical institutions surpassed similar facilities in the largest German cities. During a stop in Washington, D.C., American Red Cross volunteers boarded the train to distribute parcels to German prisoners of war, containing toiletries, cigarettes, chocolate, and writing supplies. The German nurses, raised in racial hatred and an ideology of struggle, found it difficult to comprehend such kindness shown towards enemies. In September 1942, a prisoner of war camp was established near Opelika, Alabama, which in June 1943 received its first members of the Afrika Korps. The camp hospital quickly transformed into a unique setting where German medics, steeped in Nazi racial theory, found themselves working alongside American doctors, adherents of evidence-based medicine. This dual organization of medical personnel complied with the requirements of the Geneva Convention. American medical officers provided overall supervision, while German personnel directly cared for patients. Thus, an unprecedented situation arose, where enemy medics became part of the American military medical system. The working conditions in the American hospital astonished the German nurses. Operating rooms were equipped with devices they had only seen in textbooks: electrocautery devices, modern surgical lights, autoclaves for rapid sterilization of instruments. The pharmacy was astonishing. Hundreds of names of medications were stored in ideal climatic conditions, and their shelf lives were measured in years. On July 21st, 1944, Glennon Hospital in Oklahoma was converted into a specialized facility for German POWs with a capacity of 1,190 beds and staffed by parallel American-German medical teams. Colonel Henry W. Misch implemented a practice unthinkable in Nazi Germany, integrated medical teams that exchanged experience and knowledge. German nurses from the National Socialist Nurses Society, convinced of American medicine's weakness and corruption, encountered a system based on a strict scientific approach. The greatest shock to their worldview was the presence of African American nurses assigned to POW wards. This paradox was due to racial segregation in the US Army, where black nurses were assigned to treat enemy prisoners, while white American soldiers remained outside their competence. In the prisoner of war camps across the United States, a scene unfolded that challenged established notions of war and medicine. German nurses, finding themselves in Camp Forest, Tennessee, where extensive medical facilities were deployed, witnessed firsthand the mastery of American doctors. They were astonished by how professionally and skillfully American medics provided care to the wounded, which contradicted the racial stereotypes they had been taught. One of the most striking manifestations of American medical superiority was penicillin. In 1943, the US produced 21 billion units of this wonder drug, and by 1945, production soared to 6.8 trillion units. German medical personnel, lacking access to effective antibiotics, watched in amazement as Americans routinely used penicillin to treat infections. At Camp Forest, German nurses witnessed incredible healings. Infections that meant certain death in German field hospitals receded in just a few days, where German surgeons unhesitatingly amputated limbs. American doctors made every effort to save them. American medical officers, many of whom were civilian doctors in peacetime, readily shared their knowledge with their German colleagues. This openness and willingness to help even enemies contradicted everything German medical personnel had been taught about war and medicine. The American blood plasma transfusion system became a true breakthrough, significantly surpassing Germany's achievements in this area. Thanks to precise blood typing, compatibility tests, and effective preservation methods, the Americans were able to avoid dangerous complications that often led to fatalities with direct blood transfusions, which were still practiced in the German army. In medical facilities such as the 21st General Hospital, located in Ravenol, France, where captured German personnel worked from December 1944, the blood supply system functioned with exemplary efficiency. Plasma could be stored for months, transported vast distances, and administered to patients without prior blood typing, which was unachievable for German medicine. German nurses, trained in the National Socialist Nurses Society, were convinced that medicine was to serve the goals of racial improvement. Their curriculum included disciplines dedicated to the study of heredity and racial research, where they were taught that weak and inferior patients should be eliminated to strengthen the Aryan race. However, upon finding themselves in facilities like a POW field hospital for 30,000 people, they witnessed a completely different approach. American medical personnel treated German prisoners with the same care and attention as wounded American soldiers. Former enemies were provided the same scarce medicines, underwent complex surgical operations, and received skilled nursing care, just like Allied soldiers. This cardinal contrast, medicine as a universal means of healing, available to everyone, regardless of race and nationality, versus medicine as an instrument of racial hygiene, began to undermine their ideological foundations. The Christmas celebration in 1943 left an indelible mark on the minds of German prisoners of war. American charitable organizations, driven by a spirit of humanism, sent about 500,000 parcels to Wehrmacht soldiers languishing in POW camps. These parcels contained items that seemed like true luxuries in wartime: aromatic coffee, chocolate bars, cigarettes, and bars of soap. In the camp located in Alva, Oklahoma, which mainly held soldiers from the Africa Corps, local parishioners sang Christmas carols in German. Local Boy Scouts delivered handmade Christmas cards, and families whose sons were fighting on the battlefields of Europe at the time sent homemade baked goods to the German prisoners. The Christmas table, laden with delicacies, turkey, ham, various vegetables, and exquisite desserts, surpassed anything German soldiers had seen in years of war. The German nurses in the camps noted with astonishment that their enemies displayed Christian charity, while Nazi propaganda relentlessly preached hatred and contempt for them. By 1944, the Special Projects Division had launched large-scale educational programs aimed at re-educating German prisoners of war. German nurses had the opportunity to attend lectures at prestigious educational institutions such as the University of Nebraska Medical School, located at Fort Robinson. The topics of the lectures, dedicated to medical ethics, patient rights, and the scientific method in clinical practice, fundamentally changed their worldview. The teaching method itself, which encouraged discussions, debates, and critical thinking, contradicted the rigid, hierarchical system prevalent in the German army. Their exposure to American medical literature came as a true shock. It turned out that many outstanding achievements of German medicine had been made by Jewish scientists expelled from Germany by the Nazi regime. This cognitive dissonance was so strong that many prisoners experienced deep distress. With the expanding presence of American medical specialists in Europe, German nurses were increasingly involved in working in military hospitals. Specifically at the 45th General Hospital, located in Bari, Italy, where German prisoners of war received care from July 31st, 1945. They worked under the direct supervision of American colleagues. Colonel Charles A. Pfeffer, who headed the hospital, adhered to the principle of equal treatment for all patients, whether Allied soldiers, Italian citizens, or German prisoners of war. The German nurses discovered with surprise that they were applying American methods and medications to treat those whom their former beliefs had led them to consider second-class citizens. American medical technologies appeared incredibly advanced. X-ray machines, a great rarity in Germany, were commonplace here. Electrocardiographs, which most German nurses had not heard of before, were standard equipment. In facilities such as the 3rd Convalescent Hospital, which operated from May to September 1945, German nurses had the opportunity to master equipment they had only dreamed of. Autoclaves allowed the instruments to be sterilized in minutes, not long hours. Electric aspirators replaced manual pumps. Even simple innovations like adjustable beds seemed like a huge step forward. With the arrival of spring 1945, the world recoiled from horrifying discoveries. German medics captured and serving the Nazi regime were forced to confront the monstrous truth captured in footage from liberated concentration camps. This moment became a profound moral shock for them. Initial denial of reality could not withstand the onslaught of irrefutable evidence, testimonies from American military doctors who entered the camps, to photographs and letters from Germany confirming the full horror of what was happening. They, the doctors, had served a system that transformed medicine, meant to save lives, into an instrument of mass destruction. American officers, demonstrating professionalism and composure, emphasized that medicine itself was not guilty of atrocities, but it must never again become a servant of ideology, forgetting its main purpose, healing. American authorities launched a large-scale campaign for the denazification of German medical personnel. Mandatory courses covered medical ethics and democratic principles. Concrete examples demonstrated how racial medicine harmed patients, while a scientific approach saved lives. Lieutenant Colonel Dorothy Whitman at Camp Opelika organized for German nurses an introduction to the American nursing system, emphasizing the importance of documentation and patient advocacy. The main message was that professional skills are worthless without an ethical foundation. Throughout their period of captivity in the camps, German personnel were astonished by the unheard-of abundance of medical resources at the Americans' disposal. Medicinal preparations, barely past their expiration date, were discarded without compunction, whereas Germany did not even have the ability to produce them. Instrumentation was replaced at the slightest sign of wear instead of undergoing repeated repairs. Such wastefulness served as a vivid refutation of Nazi propaganda, which had claimed the opposite. America demonstrated the ability to produce medical supplies in unlimited quantities without resorting to conquering territories. While Germany waged a fierce struggle for resources, America created them through the power of its industry. The American model of nursing profoundly impacted German professional self-awareness. Unlike the Nazi hierarchy, which demanded unquestioning obedience, American nurses acted as thinking professionals with significant autonomy. They had the right to challenge doctors' orders, propose alternative treatments, and make independent decisions within their competence. This professional model, completely alien to the German healthcare system, represented a radical rethinking of the nurse's role. Captain Helen Morrison, who served at Glennon, emphasized, "You are responsible for the outcome of patient treatment. If something goes wrong, you are obligated to report it, regardless of hierarchy." Such empowerment fundamentally changed their understanding of the very essence of nursing. The presence of African American medical personnel in prisoner of war camps created sharp cognitive dissonance for German nurses. These blonde Aryan women, raised in an environment of racial purity and superiority, were forced to work under black professionals who demonstrated outstanding expertise and skill. Lieutenant Elelina Powell, an African American, managed German medical staff at the Florence camp in Arizona with such mastery and competence that it directly contradicted the racist propaganda they had been fed back home. When Lieutenant Powell tactfully corrected their work methods or taught new procedures, the German nurses were confronted with the blatant lies at the core of their racial education. The irony of the situation was not lost on anyone. In a segregated America, black nurses were assigned to care for enemy prisoners, their former adversaries. Yet, even this imperfect system, riddled with internal contradictions, yielded results far superior to those of inhumane Nazi racial medicine. After Italy's surrender in September 1943, Italian medical personnel who sided with the Allies received much better treatment. German nurses watched in astonishment as their former allies were granted all sorts of privileges and leniency, while they themselves remained in the position of restricted prisoners of war. This pragmatic approach, which prioritized current loyalty and willingness to cooperate over past merits and beliefs, sharply contrasted with rigid and dogmatic Nazi ideology. Italian nurses enjoyed relative freedom of movement and action, while German nurses, who continued to adhere to Nazi views, remained under strict guard as potentially unreliable elements. Despite their status as prisoners of war, German nurses gained invaluable knowledge, significantly broadening their professional horizons. American officers, displaying magnanimity, generously shared advanced methods, the latest medications, and complex equipment without placing any restrictions on the dissemination of knowledge. Experience in treating burns from the Pacific Campaign and advanced surgical techniques developed in European battles all became accessible to enemy personnel. German nurses, recognizing the acute need for medical knowledge in their devastated country, meticulously documented all the information they received. After the war ended in May 1945, American authorities, demonstrating foresight, organized intensive training for German medical personnel preparing to return home. The curriculum covered a wide range of disciplines, including public health, epidemic control, and emergency medical care, skills vital for the reconstruction of the German healthcare system. Special attention was given to water purification methods, mass vaccination campaigns, and the treatment of malnutrition. Colonel Richard Stevens, addressing the German nurses, emphasized, "A tremendous need for medical care awaits you. This knowledge is our contribution to the establishment of a democratic Germany." The training also included organizing clinics with limited resources, preparing junior medical staff, and implementing effective public health measures. Upon completion of the course, German nurses received certificates confirming their American education, documents of immense value in occupied Germany. Upon their return home between 1945 and 1946, German nurses faced a grim reality. Approximately 60% of German hospitals lay in ruins, reduced to lifeless shells. However, in addition to the American methods brought from overseas, they carry with them a fundamentally new medical philosophy that prioritized the patient's interests. Former prisoners of war, determined to change their system, established nursing schools where the protection of patients' rights and needs took precedence over blind adherence to ideological dogmas. During the reconstruction of destroyed facilities, American treatment and care protocols were widely implemented. Blood donation systems, designed to save lives, were copied from American models, demonstrating efficiency and organization. The systematic use of antibiotics, which became vital in combating infections, was carried out in accordance with American recommendations based on advanced scientific knowledge. By November 1945, as the number of American medical personnel in Germany dwindled, these American-trained German specialists became truly indispensable in maintaining public health, taking on the burden of caring for the nation. The influence of the American medical model was not limited to the immediate post-war years. By 1950, many German nursing schools were led by former POWs who had trained in American camps. They introduced progressive concepts such as nursing diagnosis, designed to ensure an individualized approach to each patient, patient advocacy, and continuous education for medical staff, allowing them to stay abreast of the latest scientific advancements. German pharmaceutical companies, striving for excellence, adopted the quality standards they had observed in captivity, guaranteeing the safety and effectiveness of medications. Hospitals were reorganized according to American models they had witnessed firsthand, creating more comfortable and functional environments for patient treatment and recovery. Thus, the transformation from ideological medicine to scientific, evidence-based and humanistic medicine became irreversible, laying a solid foundation for the future of German healthcare. Statistical data allows for an assessment of the depth of the changes that occurred. A total of 383 German prisoners of war were held in the United States. The medical infrastructure, staffed by German personnel, comprised over 200 facilities. The total medical education received by German specialists exceeded 100,000 hours. The number of medical procedures performed ran into the hundreds of thousands. Upon returning home, German nurses founded over 15 nursing schools. In the American occupation zone, dozens of hospitals were reorganized according to the American model. Each trained nurse influenced dozens of her colleagues, and each reformed hospital provided treatment to thousands of patients. Thus, the effect of the knowledge and experience gained spread exponentially. In 1995, German nurses who had experienced American captivity published a statement that read, "We served the Nazi regime and found ourselves in American captivity." We witnessed how medicine, distorted by ideology, became an instrument of death, while medicine based on scientific principles and compassion served life. The Americans opened up a world of abundance beyond imagination, medicines, advanced technologies, unlimited resources. But most importantly, they demonstrated medicine free from hatred. They treated enemies as patients deserving equal attention and care. We returned home carrying not only medical knowledge, but also a deep understanding that healing knows no national or ideological boundaries. We appeal to future generations of healthcare professionals. Never allow medicine to serve ideology instead of healing. American doctors and nurses taught us this by treating enemies as human beings worthy of compassion. We arrived as prisoners and left as witnesses to the true purpose of medicine. The transformation of German nurses in American captivity represents one of the most impressive examples of ideological change during World War II. They witnessed firsthand not only technological progress, but also the fundamental principle of medicine, treatment devoid of discrimination. Their journey from Nazi adherents to proponents of scientific medicine vividly demonstrates how personal experience can transcend any propaganda. Daily interaction with American medical practices achieved what no force could, a complete re-evaluation of beliefs. The 9 nurses who left the underground hospital in Cherbourg on July 2, 1944, symbolized the thousands who experienced a similar epiphany. Captured with a belief in German superiority, they realized that true medical excellence rests on a scientific approach, sufficient resources, and universal compassion. This became the greatest victory of American medicine, triumphantly proving in practice that humanistic medicine prevails over medicine poisoned by ideology. The German nurses were not merely captured, they were transformed, becoming witnesses to the true purpose of medicine. This experience laid the foundation for the post-war reconstruction of the German medical system on principles of humanism, not racial segregation. Their transformation was compelling proof that even the most deeply ingrained ideological convictions can be re-examined under the undeniable evidence of a superior path. German nurses captured by American forces discovered that their adversaries not only possessed advanced resources, but also adhered to a more progressive medical philosophy. Where they were once taught that medicine should serve racial ideology, they now understood that its true calling is to serve humanity. This lesson, learned in American captivity, profoundly influenced the development of German medicine for generations to come. Their story is a powerful testament to this. Medicine based on scientific knowledge and compassion will invariably triumph over medicine distorted by hatred and prejudice. The captured witnessed change. Yesterday's enemies became colleagues, and through their transformation, medicine returned to its true purpose. Healing without borders, science free from prejudice, compassion for all in need.